Wall Street Memes Casino,
I'm fine.
and Sportsbook. Get a sign-up bonus of 200% up to $25,000 when joining today. Sign up now. Terms and conditions apply.
Vote for IFL in this year's Sports Podcast Awards. Go to www.sportspodcastgroup.com and vote for us in Best Combat Sports Podcast and the Diverse Voices Awards categories. IFL Pod, available across all major streaming platforms now.
Andrew McCart, IFL TV. I'm here in Liverpool, and I've got to say, this is the first time I've interviewed Savage Dan. We've been in and around fight weeks, many a fight week, but this is the first time we've had a chat, camera to mic. So, yeah, huge fight to have our first interview with Natasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer. Now, up there, Mitchell said there that this is the female version of Hagler versus Hearns. That excites me. Does it excite you when somebody says that?
It does excite me. I think it's a huge shout. It's a massive shout from him there. But in many ways it is, you know. This is two of the pioneers of women's boxing. I feel like they deserve this. It's a huge world title shot for Michaela, who, for my liking, probably shouldn't even have a loss on her record. I think she just about took that fight against Baumgardner. Natasha Jonas headlines in Liverpool for the first time in her career, as well as the first time she tops the bill. I think it's a great fight. I think it's as close to a 50-50 as you're going to get. The Liverpool fans always get behind their own. It's gonna be a big night. I expect Natasha to edge it in a close fight.
Obviously, again, the Hagler-Hearns comparison, then I've heard Joe Gallagher, I've heard Ben Shalom, I've heard a good few Beefy Smiths saying this could be fight of the year, and we're only in January. So again, for the people that are looking past this fight or not excited about this fight, I mean, they should be, shouldn't they?
Yeah, well, the styles on this just make it fascinating. You've got a southpaw who, I think Tasha, you don't have to go looking for Tasha. You know, she's right there and she's going to wing in her right hook, and her left hand, she's very, very good. And Michaela Mayer keeps coming. And eventually she finds you out down the stretch usually. And that's where I think this fight gets interesting. Early doors, you might see Tash maybe being a bit too sharp, a bit too swift for her, but Michaela grows into fights very well. And I think down the stretch, we get a war. It might take 3 or 4 rounds. It really depends on when Michaela puts her foot down. I think eventually it turns into we both hold our feet, slug it out and see who's got more.
Music to my ears, Dan. Music to my ears. Now, is this a make or break fight for both fighters? Maybe more so Tasha, being, I don't want to say her age, because she has had a long amateur career. She's had a very extensive pro career as well. So is this a make or break fight for Tasha?
I'm not sure. I mean, look, I would have said more so last year. Some of those are make or break. She seems to be in a run of her life. Every fight she's winning well. World titles after world title, after it looked like potentially she was going to retire without one. 39 years old, but 39 going on 23, mate. I can't see.
I'm glad you said her age there.
Honestly, there is no signs. I mean, I just had a conversation with her a minute ago. She's younger. She looks younger than me, mate. Honestly, like there is no signs of age in there. I watched her in the media workout yesterday. Looked happy and skippy, and there is absolutely no danger of age playing a factor. And I thought it might going into this fight. Doesn't look like she's going to get old overnight this night. So maybe not so much a make or break fight for her. It's a fight that really cements her legacy if for me, and puts her back at the super top table, you know, and all of a sudden you start chasing the names. There's even her losses have been dubious, you know. I think she in another lifetime she could be an undefeated fighter realistically. So I don't think it's make or break. I think maybe it's make or break more for Michaela, having had that loss on her record. Would have mentally maybe taken a bit of steam out of her to have 2. All of a sudden, do you become a little bit more in the who needs you club? So I think maybe there might be more on the line here for Michaela than there is for Natasha.
Yeah, really interesting. Now, talk to you about this super middleweight division now. Mark Jeffers, Jack Cullen, Zach Chile, Callum Simpson. I'm going to give a shout out to my boy Boris Crichton up in Scotland. I mean, Jermaine Brown as well. The super middleweight division domestically is tasty, and it feels like they can all fight each other once, get rematches, and that British title can get passed around like for lack of a better word, a joint, if you know what I'm saying. You can pass it around. You know what I mean? It's an exciting division right now.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think you can definitely make a tournament out of it or whatever. It almost seems like we're doing a mini tournament now when you look at it. Mark Jeffers those who didn't know about him now know he's a dangerous man, and you could just tell. You could tell from how he talks. That's a tough boy. And he'll be very, very hard to beat. Jermaine Brown, obviously a good operator as well. That's a tough fight for him, but not a fight that is beyond him. So that will be an interesting fight. Obviously, you've got Chelly and Cullen. We get the rematch. I felt like Chelly won the first fight, didn't get the decision. We go again, but since then, that super middleweight division, I think, is beautiful, and we have quite a lot of them over here. So it'll be interesting to see, who wins. At least when you lose, there's somewhere to go. It's not like you become a forgotten man. There's plenty of fights out there. Somehow you got Mark Jeffers fighting Jermaine Brown whilst Chelly sits at the top table and fights Jack Cullen, and that's just how the division is.
And I'm glad you said there, you lose, you can come again, because I think that's what boxing should. The Mayweather era's put loads of emphasis on that, holding that zero for as long as possible and don't lose it, otherwise you're not the greatest, you'll never be one of the greatest. But I think a loss doesn't define you, and I like the fact that Jack Cullen, I don't like the fact he got beat, but he got beat against Diego Pacheco last year, came back, now he's the British champion. Same as Zach Chelly, got beat against Mark Jeffers, now he's back. So that loss does not define your career.
I think there are two types of fighters. Some people lose and they're never the same again. Other fighters lose and they learn from it and they become a better fighter. Jack Cullen is that, I wasn't expecting him to pull out a stoppage like that against Mark Heffron. So it's a huge win. And it's probably given him a new lease of life. You sit up there and now you got the Commonwealth and you got the British titles and you feel more, you feel like you've got more in your locker.
Yeah.
I love the Mayweather era, and I love if you can be undefeated, cool. But there will no doubt be a couple of gifts in there. He probably did lose to Castillo, etc., etc. The O's lovely if you can have it, but if you can't, it doesn't make a difference as long as you're an entertaining fighter and you go out there and give your all and you lose in good fashion. People will always want to see you. I mean, look at Derek Chisora. I'm not even sure what his recent record is. It doesn't matter. Every time he gets in the ring, it's going to be some kind of carnage. And for the most part, that's what people want to see. We want to see action.
Well, it'll be remiss of me not to talk about, obviously, right now, boxing right now. We've got the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship happening in February. We've got Joshua Ngannou with a winner facing the winner of that. It seems like right now boxing is on the way up after 2023, having Spence Crawford and Tank Davis and Garcia and all them fights. But I'm going to get your thoughts on it. Joshua and Ngannou. Now, as a boxing fan, are you excited? And is Joshua going to do it?
I think Joshua does it. I think it's the type of fight where Joshua looks good. On paper, it shouldn't happen. We all know that. But on paper, Fury and Ngannou shouldn't have happened, and look what that looks like. It will be more interesting than people think. I know a lot of people are like, oh no, Joshua should probably have fought Hrgovic, etc., etc. I like what is happening right now with boxing to a certain degree, in the sense of the people that may not have fought before are fighting because now there's a bigger pot of money and Saudi are involved and people can hold hands and maybe relationships are a little bit better than they were. So we get the big fights. How long have we waited for even like a Crawford Spence? Sometimes we wait too long and the fans lose out. And so do the fighters. The fighters want to fight the best at their best and and really test themselves. And I think Saudi is good for doing that. I like where it's heading. Be dangerous if Saudi all of a sudden decide they're going to pull out of boxing, because then all these inflated numbers probably won't be there. But I like it.
I've got to get your thoughts as well, because Ben, and you talked about the relationships and people holding hands and shaking hands and getting things. There's always been that sort of relationship between Ben and Frank and Eddie and whatnot. But with that sort of, where Turki Al-Sheikh His Excellency saying that the Eddie Hearn versus Frank were 5 versus 5 and getting these promoters working together, that can only be good for boxing, right?
Yeah, of course. And we're eventually going to start getting involved in the Saudi cards as well. So it will be interesting, and I like it, because this kind of stuff keeps boxing alive. I saw Mayor's trainer saying male boxing is dead and on its way out. I think I disagree. You disagree? Is men's boxing dead? It's not dead. It's on its way up, but only if things start to happen that are what the fans actually want. We want to see the big fights. We want to see the best versus the best. And I get that all the businesses, including us, have to protect your assets, and you want to make sure you're doing right by your fighter, but you've got to make sure that the fans, they have their appetite fed as well. Otherwise, there is no sport. If there's no one that cares about it, You've got the UFC breathing down everyone's necks as well. Make the best fights and the sport will thrive.
I totally agree with that. One final one before I let you go, Dan. Obviously, we spoke about Jonas and Mayer being this fight of the year, Hagler versus Hearns type fight. So why should people buy a ticket? Why should they tune into Sky Sports for this huge event?
Men or women, you could take this one out. This could be anything. These are two world-class operators. They are two Olympians, two pioneers, two top fighters who probably shouldn't have a loss on their record at all. Going head-to-head, it's for a world title. There's questions on weight, who's going to be stronger at the weight. The clash of styles, you've got a southpaw versus orthodox. They're both going to sit there and slug it out. Michaela is beginning to bring in a bit of needle. There's the cup. There's a little bit of controversy beginning to set in as well. So I think this is a fight that can't not deliver. On paper, on the night, I expect this to be a barnstormer and absolutely, definitely could be fight of the year.
Definitely. So that was Dan. First interview we've had together, but let's not make it the last, all right? I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much, man. Thank you.
Wall Street Memes Casino,
I'm fine.
and Sportsbook. Get a sign-up bonus of 200% up to $25,000 when joining today. Sign up now. Terms and conditions apply.
Vote for IFL in this year's Sports Podcast Awards. Go to www.sportspodcastgroup.com and vote for us in Best Combat Sports Podcast and the Diverse Voices Awards categories. IFL Pod available across all major streaming platforms now.